I think we all have a favorite superhero. Batman, Thor, Captain America, and maybe you're a bit of a fan of the villains like Thanos. But these superheroes, they save the world, fight crime, everyone loves them, right? But there's one somewhat superhero you may not have heard of, Colm Dillane, the founder of Kid Super. But instead of saving the world, he breaks barriers and boundaries in fashion with his unique, innovative, and creative designs. By now, I'm sure you know Kid Super isn't a real superhero in your comic book, but one in the realm of streetwear. Let's dive in to see what makes him iconic in the world of fashion. Colm Dillane, the creative genius behind Kid Super, was born in New York City in 1991. Born to a Spanish mom and Irish dad, they both came to America in order to create a better life. During this time, they were street vendors that sold things, and from this, Colm was inspired. He admired how hard his parents worked, and the entrepreneurial spirit was transferred to him, although he says now his parents don't even remember their brand. Upon moving to Mexico in the 1st grade and to Wisconsin in the 8th grade, Colm was exposed to various different cultures and economic statuses that made him into the person that he was. The constant change of environments made him very appreciative of life in the small moments, adopting the idea that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I might not be here, so let's go. Returning to New York at the age of 13 is when things began to shift. Attending school, he noticed that all the kids had on really expensive clothing. Some kids couldn't wear the same shoes twice without being made fun of. Colm didn't come from a place where there was a big emphasis on fashion, so he found it quite challenging to fit in, although he enjoyed how it all brought everyone together. After visiting a Supreme store, he was treated in a way that he felt was unfair when all he was trying to do was buy a t-shirt. But instead of letting this get to him and weighing him down, he decided to say, I'm going to make my own clothes. And that's what he set out to do. Colm began experimenting with different designs and drawings. He took one of his first ever t-shirts to a skate shop on 8th Street called Blades and spoke to the manager about his thoughts. During the conversation, the manager kept focusing on not understanding what exactly the brand was about. He was very confused by this as he couldn't understand why the brand was so important and not the coolness of the shirt. Leaving the shop, he developed a new profound perspective that it wasn't about the design, but about the story that the design is telling. By age 18, he was extremely brand-focused and story-driven. Attending Brooklyn Tech High School, he met 8 friends who became heavily involved with starting a clothing brand. As there weren't many art classes, Colm and his friends began drawing a lot and putting designs on a t-shirt and named them brick oven t-shirts or bots to his classmates. They struggled a lot between who was getting what percentage of money, who was in charge of what designs were better, and so by the end of the school year, he decided to go solo and pursue the vision of his brand that he had in his mind felt was the right one. And I guess you can say he made the right decision. In college, he continued his journey, spray painting and stenciling on t-shirts. Colm was selling t-shirts out of his dorm, which he would soon be in trouble for. In order to solve this problem, he wanted to open up his own store, and this store had to have one specific feature. It had to be somewhere he could live in. Now, I know what you may be thinking, who the heck would want to live in a store? But Colm was looking at the bigger picture. Combining his living and creative space made perfect sense to him, and eventually it would become just that, providing a great living space for huge artists as well, such as Russ, who actually recorded 3 to 4 songs in his built-in studio in the basement. These songs would eventually go platinum, and how cool is that? Who can say they house one of the biggest artists in their basement? Like, seriously. Before the success of this, Dillane decided that he needed to develop his connections as he had no connections within the industry. He took to social media, adding friends of upcoming and popular artist Mac Miller on Facebook. He kept messaging them in hopes that someone would respond. At the time, Mac Miller was really into tie-dye and he wanted to design something for him. Eventually, one of these friends would respond and tell him to meet up in New York. Colm recalls the extremely pleasant experience with Mac Miller, reflecting on how ecstatic he was to try on his pieces. A floral hat would soon be the staple piece worn on an iTunes cover by Mac Miller that would help Colm gain the confidence to really pursue this dream. Funny enough, Colm never really saw himself as a top fashion designer. He just wanted to make his 15-year-old self happy, and Kid Super was created as an exaggerated sense of his personality. Colm would soon go on to shoot with Converse, who paid him $5,000 for it. He used the money to renovate his store, adding sewing machines, backdrops, and even customizing his studio with a sliding door off a vending machine. The sliding vending machine door actually has a pretty funny story behind it too. As a soccer kid, he used to play at Pier 40, and Colm had this crazy idea to dress up as a construction worker and drill the door off, and he dragged his friend into his scheme, which he hated, by the way. Once the door made it back to the basement of Kid Super Studios, it revealed the words in which Colm recalls his Jesus moment, and it said, "Only those who want to be forgotten give up." And from there, Dillane had the momentum to take Kid Super to the next level. So what's next, Colm? These are the words spoken to him by friends. Without hesitation, Colm jokingly says, "I don't know, Paris Fashion Week?" But his friends didn't think it was a joke. They saw the potential, and he thought to himself, like, if they don't doubt me, how can I? In June 2019, Kid Super made his first debut during Paris Fashion Week. He spent $30,000 in revenue and dropped a massive $180,000 on the project altogether. The summer-spring collection, titled A Bull in China Shop, featured French pants, vaquero attire, and fun, interesting pieces that were meant to caption the essence of Spanish roots. The collection landed him in Vogue, where he was named the breakout brand of the season. He then went on to create the Autumn-Winter 2020 collection in February, titled Running as Fast as You Can, featuring a super dope concept consisting of models in outwear attire such as trench coats, bubble coats, and long slip-on dresses. Another unique aspect to this show was the coated soles dipped in paint that created a track around the runway. It is meant to represent your personal journey and how far you come. In addition, some of the models were covered in what will appear to be sweat in order to bring the overall story and vision to life. The backstory to it all was, how much do you push yourself to the maximum every single day? When was the last time you truly pushed yourself to your potential? I think the whole idea behind the entire thing was pretty cool because not a lot of designers tend to be so detailed when doing a show. I love how in Kids Super shows there is always a meaning to find and a lesson to take from it. I definitely wanted to include this show because not only was it remarkable, but the level of genius and creativity was unmatched and absolutely insane. The Everything's Fake Until It's Real collection was Colm's first time officially being accepted into Paris Fashion Week. The collection featured turning inanimate objects to lifelike creatures. One thing I want to seriously point out is how much work goes into doing this. To make every movement requires moving the object several times, which in total must have taken hours. I hope Colm knows that his hard work, along with others such as Erasia North, John Freer, and Nate Dretchell, did not go unnoticed and underappreciated. The show starts off with the first model actually wearing a rejection letter to Paris Fashion Week. Colm wanted to make sure to include the meaning that Kid Super was never about being accepted, but it was about the journey and setting goals higher than you can imagine. Another thing I loved about this show as well was the representation that Colm included. He featured a model in a wheelchair, which is great because those with disabilities that are into fashion are able to see themselves in this as well. Overall, it was a fantastic show that showed yet again that Kid Super wasn't your average brand. One thing that always stood out to me about Dillane was his unconventional way of going about his shows. He did just that again with his Summer-Spring Paris Fashion Week 2023 show, breathing life into the inanimate, which was his first in-person fashion show on the official calendar of Paris Fashion Week. Colm wanted to create an innovative experience and give life to his artwork for this. Running on just a few hours of sleep in Red Bull, Colm did exactly that. The show began with a beautiful art piece of a man in a blue suit. While models walked the runway in custom pieces with detailed art, the painting ended up selling for $16,000. The show continued to immerse its attendees in a colorful and imaginative event that inspired any eyes that were able to view it. One notable piece that I want to point out is the finale of the show. Now, the clip of this actually went super viral on social media, and this is actually how I was personally introduced to Kid Super officially. I've seen a few of his clothing pieces being worn and also his name being thrown around, but I never knew who Kid Super was in its entirety. But after seeing this, it caught my attention immediately and I had to find out who he was. The finale of the show was unlike anything I've ever seen done before. It featured a custom artwork piece that seemingly started off as a regular piece of art. The head of a young woman filled the space of a cutout hole, but there was one surprise. It was actually a wearable art piece. The model quite literally jumped out of the art frame, and the artwork turned into some sort of what I would describe as a shawl. It was executed perfectly, and it was insane. Like, you could hear the crowd gasp.
His bid. $16,000 is bid, ladies.
Yeah. It was that good. If you thought Colm couldn't reach even higher heights, you are sadly mistaken. For Louis Vuitton's Fall/Winter 2023 menswear collection, they enlisted Colm to be the house's first designer to co-design the menswear collection post-Virgil Abloh. What's so full circle about this moment personally too is that I had a friend that was saying months before this, Louis Vuitton needed Colm Dillane to design a collection, in which I agreed, so to see it happen was honestly pretty cool. The show started off by tapping into the early developmental years of a child that unlocked his first Louis Vuitton box. Through that, he began to explore the whimsical things that the world had to offer and opened him up to an entirely new perspective of his own dreams and interests, which is literally what Kid Super is all about. What I love about this is that you can see his imprint and signature style on the show. I watched the show and said, yeah, I definitely know that Colm Dillane helped design this. Featuring silhouettes of long trench coats and button-up suits, the show continued with models walking through various areas of these children's rooms where their dreams started. The show had a very playful-like essence to it while also captivating you with the sounds from the artist Rosalia. Colm did a fantastic job of keeping the overall spirit of Louis Vuitton while also implementing his own ideas as well. In 2021, Colm was awarded the Karl Lagerfeld Prize from LVMH. Considering he just made his first debut a year prior, this was a huge recognition for an upcoming designer. Since then, he's done some collaborations with Puma and even a cartoon series. In November of 2023, he was nominated for a CFDA award. Although he did not end up taking this one home this time, the nomination alone goes to show how much of an impact Kid Super had in the industry. I'm super excited to see what Kid Super holds in store for the future. From a small town kid in Brooklyn to being the founder of one of the largest brands in streetwear currently, like a true superhero, he took the industry by storm and made a great name for himself. Right now, he has some super crazy pieces you can get for the cold weather, especially if you're up north or like to participate in winter sports. You can look super fly while skiing down the slopes, you know? But shout out to Colm Dillane. He's an incredibly talented and inspiring individual, and this is what makes him an iconic figure in fashion.
The difference between cool and great lies in our hands.